and welcome to Flourish Flow. I'm your host, Amy Rohrer from the Yoga Hut in Tilsonburg, here to help you connect and integrate the dots to true wellness on your healthy living journey. If my own wellness journey has taught me anything, is that there is no one-size-fits-all approach to flourishing. We all have our own unique path, but we're interviewing different people on this season who have tips, resources, inspiring stories to support you and your journey. We're here today at Breeze Fresh Market in Ostrander. They are one of our show sponsors. So a big thank you to Bree and Kyle for welcoming us here to film today's show. A big thank you to our additional show sponsors, Laura from Escape Salon and Spa, and Jen from Hometown Styles. Joining me today is Dani Reid. Dani is a top-ranked manual osteopath practitioner with over a decade of experience and a special focus on orofacial myofunctional therapy. Through a holistic approach, Dani is dedicated to improving quality of life and helping people break free from chronic pain and empowering her clients to thrive at every stage on their health journey. So a big thank you, Dani, for joining me. You drove all the way from Toronto this morning, but you do work in Oxford County. So really glad that you could join me here on the show. You've had a successful career in corporate banking before shifting to wellness. So tell us a little bit about your journey into becoming an osteopath and also myofunctional therapist.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah.
And it's been a real pleasure getting to know you.
Likewise, yeah.
A little bit about my story. It's kind of like, where do I start? So I actually grew up in a small town in southwestern Ontario. I had a interesting childhood, as many people have. We moved around quite a bit, so I did transfer schools a lot and kind of always felt like I just didn't fit in. I also grew up in a very strict fundamentalist religious home.
Okay.
And so it was no surprise when I was struggling with myself in my teens, and I would end up coming out in my teens, and it wasn't received well. And so I was kicked out of the house. I didn't know what to do. I dropped out of high school.
Yeah. Wow.
It's still, overwhelming to think about,
Yeah.
but I just didn't know where to do. And I had I felt so rejected, and I felt so angry at the world and kind of like life's not fair, and I just ended up working midnights in a factory, and that really inspired me to not work midnights in a factory anymore in Chatham, Ontario. And I would end up, as a mature student, going back to school for business originally. And I just thought, like, I'm going to show them, like everyone that rejected me and said I wasn't, welcome and whatever, I'm going to be a successful business person. And that's going to make me feel better. And so at a young age, I'm like getting in, I'm working at these Fortune 500 companies, and I'm falling up this corporate ladder. And with each new position, I'm under more and more stress, and I'm in more and more pain. And it honestly felt like my pain was amplifying each time.
Wow.
And so, I always had bad posture growing up. I looked more like this at all times. So it's like Quasimodo. It's one of those things where, like, you'd see a picture of yourself and you'd be like, hey, where am I in the picture? Oh my God, that's me, right?
Yeah.
So I always struggled with that. I was getting a lot of low back pain. I was managing Southwestern Ontario for Amex at the time, and I was just driving all the time or on the computer in meetings. And so one day my sister came to me and said, there's this gentleman, he can change your posture. He can help with your posture. And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go to this appointment, and I'm going to be walking with books on my head and learning how to, stand up
straighter. Yeah.
That appointment, those appointments, that practitioner absolutely changed the trajectory of my life.
Yeah.
And going in and getting osteopathy done, rolfing done, completely changed and opened me up for the better. So all of a sudden it's like, weeks later, and people are like, whoa, you look amazing. Like, you look so different. Something's changed in you. And with that, I was out of pain.
Yeah.
And yes, my posture looked much better, but I was also able to open up to things like going to therapy, juicing, doing yoga, eating better, caring about myself, caring about the company that I kept.
Yeah.
And it really inspired me. And someone had asked me, I was complaining about my job at that time, which I was making great money. But someone said, well, if you didn't want to do this job, then what job would you do? And I said, oh, I'd want to be an osteo. Like, I think that's so cool. And they were like, well, what's stopping you? And then I just thought, you know what? I'm going to start over.
Wow.
And I know, I always like to tell people too, it's never too late. And I had those thoughts too in my 20s, thinking it's too late on this, I should have kids in a house by this point. And it's just these like ridiculous expectations we put on her and other people put on us and whatever. And so I went back to school. I never looked back. It's the best thing I did. I ended up specializing in sports and chronic pain. So I was working with, world famous athletes, UFC, NHL, NFL, like Olympians, that type of thing. And was just, going about my day. And then a couple of years into it, I'm struggling with chronic allergies. Like it's like a couple times of the year, I am just like, taking at least, 1 or 2 Claritins. It still feels like it's just not enough. I'm sleeping 8 hours. I'm still feeling tired. I got dark circles under my eyes, and I'm still dealing with like on and off with some neck issues. And it wasn't until I actually stumbled upon some information. It was talking about the link between hypermobility, allergies, and tongue tie.
Wow.
And I have to say, and even moving forward in this interview, when we talk about like going to the right people and even a lot of cases where people are upset because things have gotten missed, stuff has gotten missed. And I've been in that boat too, where I was like, how did no one see this? I realized that I had a tongue tie. And so I was open mouth breathing almost all the time.
Right.
We never went over that in school. We never learned to assess for a tongue tie. We didn't really even talk much about the complications of it, which it has a lot of negative systemic impacts.
Yep.
So that really, really opened up my eyes, and it really, really changed my practice. And I would say too, when we are talking about like other professions or whatnot, like no one is missing things intentionally. It's just one of those things where you don't get trained for it.
Yeah, and you have within their scope.
You have to do additional training. Yeah. So even with these dentists, like I really suggest going to an airway focused dentist. They've done the additional training. And just like when we go when we talk about later on, like assessing for tongue ties and stuff like that, it's really important that you go to someone that is specifically trained in it. So myofunctional therapy or airway, an airway specialist.
Yes. What an incredible journey. We had chatted in our pre-interview, but to like really hear, more detail about your journey. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's an inspiration. Of course, we're going to talk about myofunctional therapy and health and wellness, but just your journey of really, taking those, those hard times in our life and turning them into something beautiful, but also letting them guide you in a different direction. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
How is it to share your story like that? I'm sure it's to look back and see how all the dots have connected you here today.
You know what? I think it's still kind of hard. I don't think anyone loves rejection.
No.
Or feeling that way or feeling like they're not enough or they need to change their core self to be accepted.
Yeah.
When I look back though, like I'm so grateful for my family. I'm so grateful for my beautiful wife and our daughter. And I'm like, I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah.
I would go through that all over again to experience where I'm at now.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's beautiful. Thank you so much. We are just touching into a little bit about what you do. You're going to guide us through a lot more information and resources after this short break. Stay tuned. We'll be back to chat with Dani soon. Welcome back to Flourish and Flow. I'm your host, Amy Rohrer, joined today by Dani Reid. And I would love for you to share a little bit more about what you do. Orofacial myofunctional therapy. It's a mouthful, but you're also an osteopath. So maybe if you can describe a little bit more about that in simple terms for people to know what that entails.
Okay. So I practice manual osteopathy. I've been in business for over a decade, and we would focus on the body as a whole. So when we think about things like a lot of people would be familiar with chiropractic.
Yeah.
So chiropractic was actually created by someone that was in osteopathic medicine, and they decided that they would just use a branch of that, and there is chiropractic. Osteo, we would look at the body as a whole. So we look at all the ecosystems and how they're working together and really looking for the root cause of what's causing that through using soft tissue manipulations and different techniques to bring some balance back. With orofacial myofunctional therapy, which is a total mouthful, let's start off with what it's not. So oftentimes when people just hear myofunctional therapy, they think, oh yeah, I know what that is, or they think myofascial therapy, which would be, releasing the fascial system, right? Working with the fascial system. Myofunctional therapy is working with the muscles of the face and the airway, and we are repatterning dysfunctional muscle patterns. So think of it as physio for your face, for your airway. And so the 4 pillars that are our goals in myofunctional therapy would be nasal breathing, lip seal, tongue posture, and proper swallowing.
All right, so those are kind of the 4 pillars.
Those are the 4 goals. Let's say, for example, like if you are mouth breathing a lot, right? You're then not using your nose, and our nose is our air filter, and it humidifies things and it cleans stuff out before it gets to our lungs. So if you aren't breathing through your nose and you're breathing through your mouth, that can lead to a slew of negative systemic impacts. So one being cavities, gum disease, sleep issues, and then it presents differently in kids and adults, but even like attention issues as well, just not getting enough oxygen.
Yeah, so this is really interesting. This is how I came across learning more about what myofunctional therapy was and seeking you out, doing my training for nurtured sleep, infant sleep consulting. And this can be a big thing that is happening in little children that can affect their sleep. So I'd love for you to chat more about how these issues tend to present differently in children compared to adults, because when you share that with me, I think that's really interesting how some issues in infants and little children, you might not realize that it could be related to these issues.
So I want to preface my answer with saying I don't typically work with babies. I'd be working with kids from 4 up. There's still quite a bit of differences. When we have kids coming in, we'd be looking at things like kind of telltale signs of how their face is developing. So one thing that I would look at is like, where are their eyes? Are their eyes, like this, or do they have like a little slant up like this? What would we be looking for with orofacial myofunctional or dysfunctional oral facial patterns would be the eyes almost slanting down. A narrow palate. So instead of it being this beautiful wide U shape, we'd often see crowding going on, or sometimes the appearance of like buck teeth, overbite, or even an underbite. And it's going to look more like a V shape there. Messy eating would be one. Drooling, bedwetting, hyperactivity, those can all be signs in children. Those would be some of the most common signs. They don't have to have all of them. There's certain cases where there's no bedwetting at all. It could just be more like, my kid's really struggling with eating or digestive issues, or focusing at school. With adults, it's more compounded. So it's almost like it just switches over, and I think we can all think back, or if you have a tongue tie like myself, or a reverse swallow, it's like you could have just been fine in your teens, and then all of a sudden in your 20s, you're just like tired all the time. You could sleep 8 hours and you still just do not feel rested. Some of the really obvious signs would be snoring. In a lot of women, you don't see that as much, and not every case, again, like not every dysfunction would involve snoring. But I would say fatigue,
teeth grinding,
sleep apnea, bruxism. So the teeth grinding, teeth clenching is a major sign that there's an airway obstruction going on. And so I'm not sure which camera over here. We have this trusty Mallampati score here, and we would use this to assess someone's airway health. So if someone came in and they have, like, look at this is beautiful. You can see clearly down the airway, and that's just opening up like this. You can see clearly down the airway. You can see the uvula there. Here you can still see down the airway. And then here we're not really seeing too much of anything. And here we are just not seeing the airway at all.
Okay.
And so why that happens is your tongue is the correct size, but your jaw did not fully develop. Right? So, and that happens a lot with tongue tie, for example, where the tongue is not able to fully latch in this back part here. And so our jaw it develops around our tongue. Our tongue is the foundation of our face.
Yeah.
So when that happens, when it's not able to latch properly, we see things like teeth crowding. We see things like, the face coming in really long and kind of drawn out. And I know I kind of date myself with this, but Napoleon Dynamite. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah.
Okay. Napoleon is the poster child for an orofacial myofunctional disorder.
Yeah.
He got a face like and he has adenoid eyes where you can see, the whites at the bottom of the eye there and kind of a sunken face, and he's always mouth breathing and he always needs chapstick. Those are all kind of classic symptoms that would be going on. But if someone were to come in, and two, actually, neck pain, TMJ and neck pain would be really big issues that I would see in adults.
Okay.
And so when someone comes into my office, and a lot of times people aren't coming in realizing that they have a tongue tie or they have these issues going on, unless they're sent by a specialist. I would have them look at this chart. We would have a mirror. I would get them to point out which one they think that they are.
Okay.
And we'd go over, why that's happening. But oftentimes it's someone coming in with a chronic neck or shoulder issue. And so I'll share a story. I had a client come in and she had been coming to me for a few years and she just always had this pain in her right shoulder.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things too, when you live like with that your whole life, you just have such a different baseline.
Yeah.
You've always been in pain. She's never had good sleep. She'd bring in her Apple Watch, show me, go over the data. She'd be waking up 30 times per night, more of a light sleeper. And so she had come in after I'd done the additional schooling. I go take a look and she's got a grade 3 tongue tie. So tongue ties are scored out of 1 to 4, and 4 being the most severe. And usually that's what people are taught to look for. And it's like, it's a tie. It's called an anterior tie, and it's really close to the end of the tongue there.
Okay.
So it makes it really difficult to get your tongue out or speak properly. And so we'd see a lot of speech issues.
Right.
Again, with tongue ties, it's common to have some speech issues, not always. So someone like myself, I might avoid certain words, but I wouldn't necessarily say I think that I'd have like a speech impediment.
Right. Okay. So I think what would be helpful too is because from my understanding, I have had TMJ and jaw issues, can become a lot more complicated to correct these things as an adult. Not impossible depending on the situation, but talking about some of the benefits from addressing these issues sooner rather than later, because there's a lot more, from my understanding for children, if you catch it early.
Yes.
So maybe talking about, what would you do with a child? And then if you are an adult dealing with these issues, what are some things that can help?
Okay, so let's start with kids, and I'll try not to get sidetracked.
Okay.
But I just wanted to start off by saying it is amazing to see how on top of things parents are. We see with like younger kids, more and more parents are catching it earlier, which is amazing. It's just, there's more and more resources out there and there's more information online. So I think that that's great. It's amazing if you can get that caught then. Another great window to catch things in would be ages 5 to 8 years old. They're still very malleable. And oftentimes, if you go to an airway specialist, they can put in an expander, or even times they just need myofunctional therapy.
Right.
So these kids could have a tongue tie that just got missed, a tongue thrust or reverse swallow, and that's where the tongue's jetting forward and it's hitting against oftentimes the lower teeth.
Okay.
But just learning how to rest our tongue properly, and you're learning how to wake up those muscles and how to swallow properly. When we think of the tongue, I think it's normal for people to assume it's one muscle. It's actually 8 muscles.
Okay.
Right? So, and it can be too, like you've been living with it your whole life or having a reverse swallow like myself. Again, I had no idea I was swallowing incorrectly in my whole life and having these digestive issues. But there's lots of helpful tools out there. Something like the REM Plenish straw is an amazing tool to help reverse swallow and learning how to suction and swallow, bring their tongue back properly, but also strengthening the tongue so it can latch properly. And so with young kids, like if you can intervene between those ages, and even younger if you can, it's a little harder with under 4, but if you can get them to learn how to suction their tongue to these 3 points here, so not just the front, but have a light suction up here, that's really going to change how their face is going to develop.
Right.
Their learning at school, their energy, their behavior, everything. So that's a really, really big deal. If you come in, let's say later on, so our face is still developing till, let's say around like the bones and everything, around I think 10 to 12 years old. So if you can get in before that, that's amazing. And oftentimes, let's say that the kids need something like an expander, like the tongue tie release isn't enough or they don't have enough room and they need an expander in, that can often save parents thousands of dollars from needing braces down the line, down the road. A really important note for that is if you were, let's say that you just got an expander, but you didn't fix the tongue issues, the dysfunction there. There are very high rates of orthodontic relapse when you don't treat the root issue. So the reason why it's coming in crowded and you got a high vaulted palate is because the tongue's not latching properly. So it's really important to address that at the same time so you're not having to spend, again, thousands on orthodontics later on in life.
Right. Wow. Yeah, it really connects all the dots together. I know you've got more to share, and I'm just going to pause you here to go to commercial, but thank you so much for diving into this. It's really starting to connect the dots of how you can't just, put the Band-Aid, the braces on without really looking what's going on underneath. So stay tuned. We're going to be back with Dani after this short break. Welcome back to Flourish and Flow. We're here today with Dani Reid, and I love all the props that you've brought. You're really giving us the full picture of oral facial issues and how this can impact not just our smile, but also lots of health issues, like anything from fatigue to teeth grinding, allergies you mentioned. Fascinating. So if you were an adult, that this didn't get picked up on in childhood, you're suffering with some of these issues that you've mentioned here today, what would you do? Because I know it can be costly. There's lots of different routes, but what would you do if you were in that position?
I would first find someone that can do an assessment on you. And again, go into it just open-minded. Don't sign up for anything on the spot. But just go in and see what's going on. Do you have a tongue tie? Do you have tongue thrust? Do you have enough space in your mouth? For the example that I gave earlier with that client coming in with shoulder pain, we took a look. We did some hybrid myofunctional therapy osteo sessions together, got her prepared and ready for her tongue tie release, which is usually around, again, like I don't offer tongue tie release, or don't quote me on the exact price, but usually around, let's say $500. And oftentimes it can be covered by your benefits. So that's a great start. If you are able to just do the release and that's all you need, that woman got instantaneous relief. And so there's several cases, especially with the neck, and if it's one-sided, that they get instant relief. So I would say start with that. You may go and they may take a look and go, you know what? You do have a tongue tie. It's not necessarily safe for you to even get this release because it might reattach. You don't have enough space. Maybe you had some teeth pulled. Maybe you had something going on where, your jaw just didn't fully develop. Lots of great resources. Around here for kids, she's incredibly talented. Her name is Dr. Jamie Liu, I believe, Liu, Liu. In Guelph, there is Dr. Mandeep Joel, and she specializes in airway orthodontics for both children and adults, I believe. And then one of my favorites would be Dr. Janice Goodman in Toronto. She's a total trailblazer. She's been doing this for a long time. I would go see her because they're able to take a look and go, okay, do you need some sort of oral appliance that can help create the space and then we can work on the tongue tie release. Or maybe you don't even need a tongue tie release, you just need that appliance.
Right.
But that really is fixing the root cause, because otherwise you're gonna spend so much money on manual therapies. I mean, I want you to come in and see me, but I'd feel pretty bad if I knew that there was actually a root cause that could get fixed. And you know, if you can get it coverage through your benefits or anything like that, then I would definitely suggest looking that route. A few things that if it's just not in the cards, you just can't do it right now. I know a lot of other myofunctional therapists might kill me, but I love this product, the Remplenish. I get it that people are on a budget. They can't always afford thousands of dollars in therapy. And I say, you know what, this will help us get to the finish line quicker.
Okay.
So it's a great straw. It was developed for obstructive sleep apnea in adults, but they made it for kids as well. So there's type 1, which would be for kids typically, and then type 2 for adults. And that's just remplenish.com. It's called the Myo Nozzle. Yeah. Very, very helpful. In terms of sleep and tongue posture, so again, I have no idea what this brand is. One of my clients picked it up for me. It's sleep tape, and it's just otherwise, when you look on Amazon and I get bombarded with ads for sleep tape. They're incredibly expensive, $30 a month. This will be like maybe $10, and they're just dainty strips like this. Another hack that I suggest to people would just be getting, I just get the medical tape from Shoppers for $9. This lasts me forever. I rip it off and I'll put it on my skin a couple times so it's not as sticky, and I just put it on there. So that's a little hack that I would use.
Dani, we're going to have you back again. I feel like we just touched the surface, but thank you so much for sharing everything. Quickly, how can people get in touch? Do you have a website?
Yes, so you can find me at danireid.com, so DANIREID.com, or on Instagram at the Dani Reid.
Thank you so much. On behalf of our show sponsors, a big thank you for tuning in here today. Until next time, may you continue to flourish and find your flow.